If you don't know whether you're going to Montreal or Miami, every intersection is a crisis. That's the feeling that a lot of people have when they come down to this decision. What am I supposed to be doing with my life? Where am I going? What am I good at? What should I not waste my time on? I've spent the last 3.5 decades of my life working in spaces where folks were going through life transitions. Graduate schools, colleges, military. These experiences, by definition, have a parenthesis on one end called admissions, qualifying step, and graduation. Victor Turner likes to say that the process in between is something called communitas, a ritual process where we experiment with different social identities. We came as a college student, we left as a graduate student or a PhD. We went in the military with a full head of hair, and we came out with a bald head, and we became a lieutenant, or we became a private. We experiment with different social identities through these liminal experiences. Well, I've been curious as to how folks get their answers to that question. What shall I do? What can I do? And I've come up with a way to help folks at least begin to talk about it in a way that accounts for who they've been, who they are, and who they may be becoming. So I call it segment 10 thinking. Picture your life as a series of 10-year segments. And let's make the assumption that you're going to live to 100 years old. That would give you 10 segments. You get it? Segment 10 thinking. So the first question I ask to help folks sort of get with this is, what decade am I in right now? I have moved from my 5th decade to my 6th decade. And using segment 10 thinking, that means I've got 4 decades left. That's under the most optimistic view of things. Now, my mom's 93 years old, so I might have a good shot at thinking through what it might be like to be in my 90s. I'm seeing someone live that out right now with vitality, engagement, community all around her, still leading the way that I've always seen her leading. Well, my mom's life is characterized by some changeless change. Her 4'11" self has always been a leader type, a manager type. She's the mom of 6 kids, 6 military kids. She moved and set up households on both of the coasts, up and down the East Coast, following this military man over his career, my dad. There's a kind of sameness to who she is in her temperament, her personality, what makes her happy, sad, what she avoids, what she's attracted to. And it's probably similar to you. So I've laid out a worksheet for you that lays out life in these 10-year segments, and it gives you a set of instructions. One is to join me in a weather forecasting metaphor, because this doesn't have to be too deep. Whenever we get ready to go outside to go to work or to go and play, we often consult our phone screen to see what the weather is, maybe at our destination or through the day. Will it rain today? Is it going to be snowing out? We check the conditions so that we can dress appropriately, we can pack well, we can make some packing decisions if we are indeed going to Montreal. No need to take the bikini and the swim shorts. Or if we've decided we're going to Miami, no need to take the parka and the heavy woolies. We check the conditions and we pack accordingly. The decision making in between is a case of how we are practicing wisdom and prudence and stewardship, clarity. So the first exercise asks you to look back, and depending on which prompt that you choose, whether you'll look at kind of the emotional story of how things went up and down, whether you'll look at it more as a narrative, once upon a time, and then I left the Shire, and then I met the beast, and then I discovered a sword. There's various ways to navigate your view of these shaping events. But I suggest you look at threshold moments, liminal moments where you experimented with different identities, that you look at the emotional continuity of your life, what makes you happy, sad, mad, afraid, disgusted. Because some of these things tend to have a lasting quality, a continuity to who you are. So if these things are true for 4 decades in your life, or 5 decades, or 6 decades, it's likely they will be true for decades to come, unless there is some decision set, some value change, some different shift in life. And those things are all possible. So I'm not trying to be dogmatic here. I'm trying to help folks develop a vocabulary to talk about this. It's not uncommon for me to be sitting with an executive that's in kind of a muddle about a set of decisions that's emerging or a turning point that's emerging in their lives, and they don't know which way to go. And we'll take kind of a decadal flight forward and say, what would your 70-year-old self advise you on this Thursday afternoon? What would your 80-year-old self find satisfying with the trajectory that you took coming out of this? So I'll play with these decades, the segment 10 thinking, to get folks away from the complexity and the fragmentation of the moment to something that's a little more reliable, like the patterns that preceded perhaps are indicative of the patterns that will succeed and follow. Perhaps we can trust ourselves. Perhaps we can admit that we delight in particular things, and that there are other things that we don't necessarily care for, we're indifferent to. And perhaps we can let go. Those are like the parkas and the woolies. When we've decided we're going to Miami, there's no need to continue carrying that stuff around with us. So, we first look at known conditions. Next, we look at the decision sets that are in front of us and try to discern, is there anything that I can be relieved of in light of the clarity that I have? And then we make forecasts, not predictions. This isn't clairvoyance. This isn't palm reading. Nobody knows the future. But making decisions that maybe I can be relieved of some things, that my design might be informing my destiny. I discovered that I had an ear for music in such a way that allowed me to begin playing piano in improvisational piano by ear, I guess is what we call it. I never learned. I never went to school for it, trained for it. I just knew how to play one day in my 20s. And I've been able to play piano ever since. I can hear something, get to the keyboard, and pretty closely begin to reproduce it in a way that you'd recognize it. It's something I enjoy. I do it for myself. I don't do a lot of performing. Used to be a part of a few bands and this sort of thing, but mostly it's for my own enjoyment these days. But that is been with me. In my mid-20s, I wondered, given the kind of mystical nature of its arrival in my life in the second decade, late second decade, early second decade, late second decade, it was about 21 or so this happened, 19 or 21. I thought, well, maybe I should prepare for being a musician. And I was singing in bands during college and used to go sing at weddings. I've written about 83 songs. I wondered if this was going to be a part of my life. But as I became more and more clear about leadership, organizations, systems, and a kind of knack that I had for strategy, I realized that I had a choice to make. And I remember deciding either I'm going to have to get very serious about the keyboard and really invest excellence into this, or I'm going to have to face that it's probably my leadership development, my leadership educator self that keeps showing up, that keeps getting rewarded, that made a lot of rank and recognition in the military, that was getting recognition during my college years. I sided with the leadership development side, and the rest is actually a career history. I've spent 4 decades doing primarily nothing but leadership and workplace impact training my entire career. And it came from that one pivotal decision at the beginning of the end of my second decade and the beginning of my third. I hope that illustration helps you think about what I am referring to as I talk about a life forecast. I hope the instructions make sense. Feel free to be in touch if I can help you get some clarity on how you can navigate the forecasting process.